Okay. Sorry, last week, the problem with my installation was my virtual box image. So for some reason, I cannot install the SQL server. So I don't think you all have the same problem as me lah. Shouldn't have. So normally when you go to the MySQL installer, you should at least see this one. If it's not there, when you add, you can actually add the server in. Okay. Um, so what you all need is the first item, the MySQL server. Okay, so the installer should you will add this in. Number second item you need is the connector J. Okay, so these are two things you need to will complete the rest of the module. The lessons are for database access. The rest, workbench is a good to have. Normally we use this to have a GUI to manage database and tables, like creation tables and looking at the data. As for the rest, they are quite unnecessary lah. The shell actually here is a command line. So if you're interested in uh, doing selection, querying using command line, you can also use the shell. Normally I won't do that. I can use the workbench. Okay, so I think you can get started. Okay, so if you have managed to install the server, apologies for last week one cause for some reason my virtual machine doesn't refuse to install any MySQL server even though I try the MySQL clone. Oh, do you know that have you heard of this DB called MariaDB? Have you seen this before? MariaDB. No. Okay. MariaDB actually right is a clone of MySQL. So the original creators of MySQL after Oracle bought over MySQL, they left they left it to Oracle and then they came out and created this MariaDB as an open source project. Because Oracle likes to put price tag on everything they buy. So this guy preferred an open source model. Yeah. So they continue to create this. So if you ever come across MariaDB and you wonder how different is it from MySQL, actually it's almost not different. It's almost the same. You can use Workbench to access MariaDB, and everything, the functions, data types, all are exactly the same. Okay. Yeah. But that's if you wanna find out about if you come across MariaDB lah. So you don't need to worry that it's so different. Okay. So coming back to the Workbench. So if you launch a Workbench, you can actually connect your local MySQL. So if you download the latest installer, what they will install for you, the server is a version 8 server. So if you can like add a connection to the local, when you want to connect to your local SQL server, I think a lot of students always forget the password they key in. Then later when you connect, they forget the password. They got remove server and reinstall again. Okay. So when you set a new connection, there are a few key things you need to key to take note. One is host name. Those typically when you put this value 127.0.0.1, it means localhost. You can leave it as that. If you're installing MySQL for the first time, your PC or machine, the default port is always 3306 unless you change it. Username root is the super user, and if you try to test connection, it will ask you for something like a password. So I think for development, try to keep a password as simple as possible. You don't need to make it too complicated. You need only in the production environment, then you want to have like a 16 character very special password that you can't even remember. So so once you have these few parameters, you can click OK, and then you just create this icons here on the workbench. So next time when you come to workbench, you'll find that if you had created a connection before and save it, it will appear as one of the boxes here. This also works if you want to connect to any MySQL database that you can access in your network, on the cloud, and such. Yeah. So clicking on the box, you launch you into the main screen for your MySQL. Now the first time you see in Workbench, you notice a quite a number of screens. So to orientate you a little bit, on the left side where it calls the navigator, by default there are two tabs for the schema tab and administration tab. The schema tab allows you to see the different schema. So last week, or the week before, I was drawing the data. Last week, drawing databases, those cylinder. So each database, we also call that a schema. So notice the icon here is the cylinder also. So when MSQL is installed for the first time, you probably find only one schema that called system. Please don't delete it. You can open it to see the tables. Try not to change anything inside here also, because if you do, your MSQL may not start up after this. Okay. Within the schema navigator, you can right click and you can see an option called create schema. So if you want to create a database for a project like marketplace API, I think this is where you start the create schema. Okay, so if you come down to the bottom, you see there's an administration tab. You click on a tab, you will find more options. So these are tabs that allow you to see the state of your database server. Because you're logged in as root, super user, you are privileged to see all this information. Things like server status, you can click on any of them to take a little more information about what the server is doing now. So if you click on server status, they work by tabs. So open new tab, it show you that some information about your database. The host, typically is the name of the computer. Socket, port, version. Okay, running since, it tells you when it has been running, started. On the right hand side, all those your traffic information like status, is it running, how much CPU is it using, how many connections are there, data is going in and out. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of information about your server. If you click on the second item under management, this cylinder and type, you will call it client connections. So every time if there is a connection to your server from your application or anywhere within itself, like even the WebSQL workbench, you're actually opening a connection, you will see here. So they'll tell you the state of the connection, where it's coming from, is the host, and also like the last command or the last query was executing. Like here, you see a lot of them are like command sleep query. Okay, so like now when I am actually checking out server information, actually doing some queries from the workbench, but I'm not sure exactly what kind of query is running. So you can see that this query is actual active thing happening. The rest that say sleep, basically they're like threads that are open but they're not being used. Okay. You go into this very important part called user and privileges. So if you create an application, your marketplace API, you need a database, but you also need to create users that will be using the database. General practice is you never allow any application to use the root super user. So what you do is that for every application that need to use the database, you create a different user to use it. Why is it so? Because root user has an overwhelming amount of privileges that can do a lot of things on the database, like is in fact even shutting it down. So in order to avoid it falling into the wrong hands, especially in the application development environment, we give a restricted user or underprivileged account just for your sake of application. So here, this user privileges is where you can create a new account to access the MySQL database, and then you can set the privileges, like what data can it see, and what can it do. So you don't want this user for your application to do things that your super user can do, like shut down database or create new databases. So of course not. So that is one practice. So if you click down a bit more, there's like status and system variables. These are generally settings in the database. Most of the time you won't really see them unless you need to do some kind of analytics or maybe some investigation or issues problem. Going further now, there's data export and import. Okay, so data export will be very useful when you submit the assignment because you want to actually do a dump of the data. How long someone see? Then you do dump the data, and then after that you can zip it together with your code and submit to the assignment tool link. So when we come to the nearer to the end or some part before that, I will just show you how to do the data dump and then how to package it. Okay. Typically, data dumps in MSQL are generally without .SQL files, so they consist of, if you open up in the text file, they will have all the commands for creating database, dropping table, creating table, inserting rows. So that's typically how the data dump look like. On the other hand, if you have a table you want to import, like someone pass you a schema, you just say, can I, you ask your friend or classmate, can I take a look at the schema? So maybe he or she exports the dump structure and data, then you can actually go to this tool, import and restore, to import the data from your friend's file to yours. But you must remember that you do that, you should try your name of the schema should at least be different. Yeah, otherwise what happens is that your friend's database might override your own database. So let's say my own database is called marketplace, and then your friend one is called marketplace. And you go and take your friend's one and import, right? It will just override everything. It might override everything you have, depending what your friend exported. Okay, so you want to avoid that. Um, you can actually do a few things. Let's say unavoidably it's all the same thing. You can actually change something in your friend's SQL file, the dump file, and then run the import. Okay. Or you can from here, force it to import to another schema. Okay. Other things you can do will be shutdown startup. You can shut down your server. Only the root user can do that. Okay. If you want to investigate what's gone wrong, sometimes you can look at the server logs. Options file basically it's basically like how does your MySQL server start up, how much memory does it use, how many connections does it have in the pool. So a lot of these things and security you can modify in the options file. So imagine options file is only read once when the server starts up. So if you want to change this, you will need to stop the server and start it up again so that you can read the new values. Now in option file you can do a lot of things. Especially if you're playing with performance, you can like set memory usage and all that, right? On replication. Okay. In today's context, if you're going to develop an API with a database, maybe half the time you encounter a database like this or SQL Server that you need to set up. Otherwise, you could be using things on cloud like RDS, which is a cloud provided database system. So you may not need to do a lot of setup. Okay. In terms of the last one, area called performance. So that's just some metrics you can see about how much data your database is using, how fast is it returning data, what's the traffic like. This is useful only if your application is experiencing very high traffic. So example, maybe let's say certain APIs take very long to return a response. Then you do some tracing and realize that, oh, the database is a bottleneck. Then maybe you want to come here to take a look and see why and how much data is causing a bottleneck. Okay. So this is generally the walkthrough on the workbench on the left side of the navigator. We close this tab. So when you turn on the navigator, the workbench, you will get also the middle tab is where the main action follows. This query tab is where you type in your SQL commands and then you can execute them. And the output below, depending if you're retrieving a table, it will give you a tabular display. Otherwise, if you're doing manipulation data, the output will just tell you how many rows are affected, and that's it. So, so to familiarize with yourself the commands with the things here. So if you were to there's open, so you can open a pre-written SQL file load into the tab here and run it. You can also save whatever you type here to a file in case you wanna reuse it next time. The two lightning icons. The first lightning icon is to run everything if there's no selection or highlighted rows. The second icon to run whatever your cursor is at. You can limit it to run one row and such things. Okay, so these are the two important things to take note. So let's come back to our application now. So today we're going to build your tables for Marketplace API based on some of the data we have, the objects we have in the project. And then we have a lot of domain objects that we can play around with. Okay. Okay. So prior this I actually clone my repository for GitHub into Eclipse, so I get it in the project. I will subsequently make changes, and from here I can push the updates to GitHub, and then you can download there or do a pull. Okay, so let it start first. So we'll do some low-hanging fruits today to cover some of the database options. So in database access in Java, you need to remember some of the key classes that you will definitely use all the time. Those are actually in the lecture slides also. Lecture slides you can read on your own actually. So I'm going to go through everything in code. Um, so if you want to refer to what we'll talk about today, this will be in this Java database programming using JDBC. So we'll be using the JDBC, and there are some classes that are very important. So important, I'll ask you in the exam, the test. But it will do enough in the code that you should probably remember it. Those things that I'll talk about will be covered here in code after my Eclipse startup. Okay, so some things about databases. So when database server runs, uh, every time you create to interact with the database, you always think about creating a connection. Okay? Just like if you were to go online, you need to create a connection to the ISP, they bring you to the internet, that kind of thing. So connection is the foremost important thing in establishing. And in a connection to a database, you always are expected to provide some key information to tell your Java code how to connect. So two very key information that you always have for every kind of databases most of the time, username and password. So what user are going to use and what password you're going to use to connect. And the next key information is where is the database located, or the host, which is typically IP address or some kind of a domain name or computer name in the network. Finally, the last thing is the port. So every database has a certain kind of port. Why is there a port involved? Because most database connections they are done via TCP/IP. So TCP/IP has two fundamental things you need to know: IP address and ports. So every machine in the network has an IP address, IPv4 address, and to connect there to that particular machine or database, you need to know the port you go to. MySQL uses port 3306. SQL Server uses another ports, and different databases use different ports. I think question. So you might ask the question, why not like all of them use the same port? Why do they use different ports? Because whenever a machine's port is used for a particular purpose, in this case, you cannot use the same port for any other thing. Just as so, if let's say my web server is running at port 80, I cannot run another web server at port 80. So likewise for databases as well. It gives us the flexibility to have multiple systems on the machine if you want to, but it also it's just the way TCP/IP is engineered now. Okay. So now to back. Okay, maybe that's not important. Okay. So let's review our application. These are the stuff that we built so far. Yongjin, right? Yeah, so you missed a lot. So you can look at the code. Like there's a lot of things since last time it appeared. So last week we did on authentication. So you notice there are two packages here with COM_SP marketplace.auth of two different ways of authorization. Choose one that you need to define. Choose one that you need to set in the application to sort of register, and then you will use that method authentication. Sample code all within the latest GitHub. You can do a clone and or download the zip file, open it, Eclipse, and check it out. Okay, so but the order of business today will be to do with database, and to know what tables you need to create for your marketplace API, we will get all the information from the models package. So in the models package, there are some objects here that are directly tied to what we're going to store in the database. Things like this, product Java. Like a product on the marketplace is definitely something you want to store in the database because you want to persist This is because people will be looking at the products and inquiring on it. So that's one of the key items you need to store. Other things that you want to store will be actually the accounts, login accounts, consisting of username, first name, last name, email, mobile, country code. Another one that you might store will be offers. So when someone offers to buy something, that information will be stored in the database. So some of this information here, we can directly lift the attributes. For example, in product Java, all these things like ID, name, price, images, all this we can directly lift into the database and create a table that can store this. But other information like this account may not lift. You may lift part of all of this, but you'll still be missing some key information like password and username. Okay, offer, as much as it looks simple from here, I think there's also a bit of other information you need to factor in. Okay, so since my database is ready, and we need to talk about the first step in doing all this is to go to MySQL and create your schema. So the first thing you need to do before creating any single table is to create a schema. The schema is a container that will store all the tables. So you go to the right side navigator, right click, you'll find there's this option called create schema. To do this is very GUI way of doing this. So your schema will require a name. So you can call this marketplace DB or just marketplace. Okay, let me apply. You can click apply straight away, or I can talk a bit through what this character set collation means. So character set, if you for information about what this means, right? If you click on the drop down, you see a lot of character sets. Okay. So if you in computing long enough, you know what ASCII means, huh? So every 255 characters possible based on the standard set of fonts, and they have other different character sets. So why are there different character sets? Is because some of them are locale specific, and some of them may not be so much of a text but binary. Okay, the character set sometimes is important because depending on what you want to store, you might not want to use ASCII or the default. You want to ask yourself what's the default. Say for example, your application needs to cater to East Asian languages like Mandarin, Chinese text, Japanese text, Sanskrit. In Myanmar, you also have a different type of text, right? The fonts. So if you use ASCII, you have problem storing this kind of fonts. So typically, if you want to store multinational text, multilingual text, you probably need to choose one of these called UTF. So Unicode. So UTF 8, 16, 32, what they mean is the amount of bits that's allocated to store a character. The UTFs are very useful for languages that fall out of your typical ASCII character set, 255 characters. So like those languages with the type of Sanskrit or type of like Mandarin, East Asian kind of languages, you normally want to use one of these UTF to store them. So your client side will read the text messages. So if you're going to develop a application that is for a wide international range of audiences, most of the time the best practice is to go for a UTF set of UTF character sets. Okay. If you're only anything to a set of English audience, then I think you can use ASCII. Okay. Wait. Okay. So other than that, to take note of, now once you have your name for a schema, you click apply. So in MySQL Workbench, whenever you do something like create schema, table, and things like that, especially do with definition language, two types, right? Data definition type languages, it always show you the actual SQL statement. So I think it's a good place to learn when you do something in GUI, what does the actual SQL statement look like, which is this case. So you can see this is you actually here create schema. So create schema is one of the data definition languages. Okay, apply. So once you're done, on your left side you should be able to see the new database created. Now if you have followed what I just did, you notice that one of the cylinders is highlighted, the other is kind of faded off. Why? The one that's highlighted or solid non-faded is the one that is the current selected. So when you first enter, you probably just not because I opened the system cylinder to see the tables, right? So this becomes selected. Now I don't want to set that as my current selected database schema, so maybe I just want to double click on the other version, the schema. Okay, so this is where I want my current database to be. Now, if you're familiar with SQL Server, whenever you are addressing a database or manipulating a particular schema, you always need to specify the database about which schema am I using. So, as a developer, to be doubly sure that I'm actually doing things to the right schema, not creating the right tables in the wrong place, right? I always have this line to tell me or to tell the database I'm using a certain schema. So I'll say use marketplace. So this line actually this line actually, if it precedes anything else I execute, if I run this whole script here, it will make sure that I'm only touching this schema and nothing else. But sometimes we also have mistakes of creating tables in the wrong places, especially as a root user. Yeah, so that goes back to you should actually use a limited privilege user to do a lot of these things. But that's fine for now. So let's just create our schema first. Then later we'll create a user specifically for your marketplace API to use. So the first table we're gonna create will be based on one of the models, which is the easiest one, product. So product Java is a model that we created in order to return to the API or from the API return to your Android app a list of products for sale, just a carousel, right? You can search and it gives you a list of things that's available for they can buy. So in the same fashion, all this has to come from database and we can actually create a schema based on this. So I'm going to move this to the side so I can see the name of the properties. And here. So there are two ways to create a table. One, I can do this, the very more tedious way. Okay, so notice of the typing everything in small case, low case. It's up to you how you want to type this out. Okay, am I writing the right thing? Create table. So yeah, I can do this off. You can do it another way is to GUI stuff. If you right click on tables on that side and click on create table, what they will show you is something like this, a wizard. Okay, the wizard itself will have some options. Will be similar to what I think talk about table columns. Okay, so every table has a name. Table name, products is in schema or marketplace. You can leave the character set collation to default because whatever you specify at the schema level, the tables will inherit. Engine, leave it as InnoDB. Don't need to change it. And in the middle here, so the rest of the stuff. So if you probably might need to do this, on your GUI, you need to probably pull down the output so they can see this box here. So what the box here does is allow you to enter the different columns you have in your table. So in this case, in my product model on my left hand side, I have ID, name, price, images. So we're going to follow that order and just create the column names. So does my column name need to be Pascal case just like the left hand side? Doesn't need. It's completely your call how you want to, what style you want to do. I'll just do everything as lowercase. So ID, first column in the table, ID, which is identifier, unique identifier. Very importantly, also typically is always the primary key. So when you do this in database, it will actually naturally put a key icon there. So this tells you that this column is a primary key. Data type integer. You need to key that in because you also try to assume first thing you key is an identifier. PK, the toggle here stands for primary key. NN stands for not now. So primary key cannot be now, must have a value. But also, what's missing from this is if I specify only these two parameters, primary key and not now, means I must provide a key. So every time I insert a row into products, I must give it an ID that is unique. Now if I do that on from my software side, it becomes my responsibility to check that the ID I'm going to insert is truly unique. Okay, but if I don't want to do that checking, I want to let the number run by itself. There's one option at the end here, AI, which is called auto incremental. Auto incremental will check the option. What happens is that every time a new row is inserted, this ID column will be pre-populated by the database. So it's kind of a sure way to, is a way to ensure that you don't have a duplicate IDs in the table at all. Okay. The last column default expression is something that you might use if, let's say, that column is something that you want the database to generate on your behalf, and there's a certain formula or function that you want to make use of. Most of the time, maybe not. So this is first column ID. Then to click on second row below, you can enter the rest of the other columns. So like name is a string. So here you can start seeing the different type of different data types I mentioned before. So if you click on the drop down in the data type, you see this whole I think we group it nicely for you, different type of data. Like the first one, first set, commonly used integer. They specify the bit range. Normally is a 32-bit bar chart with a parenthesis. So when we see the round bracket, it means you need to provide a parameter to define this type. They also have decimal. In this case, instead of number of characters, decimal is number of decimal places, a precision level, date time, and block. So if we go down the list, there are other type of data, even like block itself, like, and instead of binary, they have different type of binaries. It's interesting if you look at this geometry. So anyone use Google Maps? You all use Google Maps, right? So Google Maps is an interesting application that has a database that runs on geometry. Geometry means I deal with coordinates, distances, direction, vertices, and stuff. Geometries are also very important for 3D systems, 3D imaging systems. So the way they store data isn't so straightforward as just numbers in the database. So MySQL and a lot of databases have started to provision this kind of data storage like geometries, and also probably functions to to deal with all these values. Okay, scroll down, you can see a bit more. As I mentioned before, like big int, small int, tiny int. So like in MySQL, they don't tell you int 32-bit, int 16-bit. They just say tiny, small, no size, big. Okay, medium. So the terminology refers to the number of bits that allocate per space. So you don't know exactly how, you probably want to go to the MySQL documentation page to find out. So this is all the information type of data you can store. So like your Excel, you can define the column, but you can't define the data type, right? Here you can define the data type to ensure that only certain data goes in. So for name is a string in my model, on the right hand side obviously, but as a database column for a product, how much space do I want to let the seller, type into the field name? If I want to sell something lah, how many characters do you think you want to let the person name the product? How many characters do you think is enough? 50? 100? 255? This is I think this is the maximum 400, or this is like max. Yeah. But okay, so maybe I just put 255. Okay. So when you create a column, you also can decide, do you want the column to be not null and such. So maybe I can leave that empty for all the options. Okay, so next column will be price. So price in my model is a double. Double means I'm gonna definitely store at least 2 decimal places. Okay, so in the data type itself, do they have double? Yes, they have double. Okay, so in the data type they have double as well. But what about decimal? Why not I use decimal? So double actually is that double. Let's say double and decimal. I think that the difference is a precision difference. Double versus decimal. Okay. So let's say someone say about double, right? So someone actually list out what the different types they can hold, what values they hold there. Okay. So floating types. So floating types are anything to do with decimal places. Float, double, and decimal. Okay, so size the total. Now double 83 basically is number of digits before the decimal point and after decimal point. So you can control the type of position you want to store. So if you want to use double, we can do that. If you don't specify, typically it lets you store quite a fair bit of digits after decimal place. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's add the rest of the types. So price, images. Now images on our product side. Okay, so image on product side is interesting. On the product side, we're going to return in the data to the endpoint, to the Android app if you want to do it nicely. So we return a string array. But there's no such thing as a string array type in the database. So how do we store it? Well, so you probably want to think about at this point, images means the images that the seller can put up for the product. Like maybe how many images you want to limit the seller. Like Carousel has a limit. You probably can put up like 20 images or 10 images and that's it. You don't want to let them have a full range of how many images to put up. So that control is on the software side, which also translates to in the database. If let's say I allow a person to upload 10 images, I will need to control certain things. So dealing with file uploads, especially from anywhere, even with Android application. So people they will choose an image from the phone, so they just take a snap photo, upload. Now your phone, whenever you take a photo, the phone will, your Android OS or your iPhone will designate a special number to the file name of the image. So it's different from your computer where sometimes you give a long name to describe it. Okay. Now the file name can be is in any form. Okay, so you need to expect you need to be prepared to expect anything. But when you receive the file in your endpoint and store it in the server, you can actually decide the file name for yourself. So in that respect, actually the final file name that's stored is up to you to control how you want to store it. So some people may give like a running serial number for the file name that's stored so that you control the size of the length of the file name. So it won't be like too long. Well, so let's say let's say you think about limits. Every seller can put a product and every product has at most 10 images. And so 10 images, maybe for each image you allow up to 200 characters for a file name. Okay, but you're going to create a file name, you're going to name the files anyway once you receive it. Okay, so 200 characters I think is long enough. So if you have 200 characters times 10, that's 2,000 characters. And if you're going to store all the file names as a single continuous string, you need some kind of delimiters. So you need like 9 more characters for delimiters. So that's 2009 characters in total space you need for your images. But just say you're going to be at least safe than sorry, put more than less. Okay. Maybe you do this. Varchar 4000 just to be safe. Shouldn't go wrong, right? Okay. So this will make sure this will ensure that you can store at least 10 images or each image of 200 characters long and there are 9 characters allocated for delimiters. More than enough. Okay. Then you move on. So the next the information of column you have on the model will be called full description. So I'm going to do this. So full description will be what the person will type in. So the person will type a description about the product. If you go to Carousel, normally they allow you to put emoticons, some little mini font icon and stuff like that, text icons, emoji icons and stuff. So depending on how you want to store a text, you can either indicate a varchar 4000 character, or if you think you can be more generous, Chinese. You can use this type called text. Okay. So there's this thing called long text, medium text, tiny text, or text. Okay, but with a bracket. So what does it mean? go to the reference menu. If you're not sure what some of the options mean, always refer back to the MSCL reference manual. I mean, it's an open book for everyone to take a look. And this will be one of the common section you go, data types. Okay, next one will be function operators. So in data types, you want to find out, hey, which one can I use if I want to store a certain amount of text of a certain, they contain that much information. So if you're going to store text, normally they classify under this thing called string text. And yeah, so they have the character, variable character, binary, variable binary, block, and text types. So the one we're going to look at is the text type. Okay, so if you're using block, is a binary large object. That's valid if you want to store a file. But if you're not, right now they're going to let a person enter full description, so it's going to be text type. But how much text to give the user, right, of per item? So the four text types are tiny, text, medium, and long text. Okay, do they have storage requirements? Let's see, I want to find the amount of space they can store. Okay, DB data string times right. Okay, so here is the storage requirements. If you want to store block or text, the length of the text is up to 2 to the power 16. 16 2 gig, right? Whose math is very good? 2 to the power 16 is what? Eugene, do you know what's 2 to the power 16? I'll use my calculator here. 65,536 characters. So if I decided to use text, how many characters can I store? 65,536. More than enough to write. I said. Okay. If I decide to store long text, okay, long text is 32 power 32, right? Long text is is like okay, is 4 million, no 4 billion, 4.2 billion characters. Okay, don't think I need that many characters. I'll use 60. I'll use text. Okay, so text, right? So I'll leave the text. I'll just store text for description. Next item, deal types. Okay, so apparently deal types in my model is a string array. So what are deal types? So copying carousel like deal types is like meet up or delivery example. So how do you want the sale to be closed? Via meeting up or via delivery? Okay, so maybe now you have two versions, two type of deals. Depending how you store them. So some developer may like to store the full name like or delivery in full capitals as a text. Okay, then you delimit this with a comma or pipe character, then the next type lah. So if you want to do that, you can, or some developers like to just have a one for delivery, two for meetup, or one single character meaning something. It's up to you. So whatever it is, let's say I would like the full text version, so it's easier to read. Maybe I just give a variable character of 100 for now. I think because I only have two deal types, so no need to do too much. Next item is short description. So the short description is the information on the product that will be shown when a user is looking at a grid display with a lot of products. Full description is when you go to detail page, then you see full description. So in the short description, I like the seller to provide a short, captivating description, so the user might likely tap on the product detail to see more. And so because it's short, maybe I'll give only 255 characters to describe the product. Okay. Now my next one is hero image. So hero image is the image of the product that will appear in the grid display in the Android app. That one single image that among all images the seller has to choose. Now this hero image in database what I'll be storing is not the binary image but rather a file name. Now what's the file name of the image that I'm going to pull out from. Since previously in the images column I decided to give up to 200 characters per image. Okay, I'll use that standard here for one image 200 characters. So this is going to store a file name, not the actual image itself. Okay. So why don't I want to store the image in database? Number one, I want to reduce the amount of I/O traffic from a DB. The more I/O traffic from a DB means the higher chance that I may create congestion whenever information is retrieved. So rather store it in a file system and put it aside as a kind of so in cloud it could be S3 or a fast file fetching system. It's a read-only system where it's relatively fast to serve out binary data. Final item, likes. So likes will be the people who tap on the love like the item, and of course likes a number, so just give an integer. Okay, so by now I will think I have all the columns I want. Okay, if I am happy with this setup configuration, maybe I might add more. Then I click on apply. Okay. So when you click on apply, it will show you the actual SQL statement to create this table. So you can see what actually is going on. So here we are creating a table. Notice that the schema is repeated. So when you are doing certain things in database, you have to be very sure that you will create a table in a schema. So when you create a table, it has a schema dot followed by the table name you want to create. And then using the round bracket is you list down the individual columns and what the column. So name a column, different attributes like is it the data type is basically you need data type of course all the time. Not now, is it auto-increment, is it unique, etc. Or is it expression? So these are all the different options we've chosen just now. Okay, come to the end, you notice something new that we didn't exactly specify the settings. Okay, but the database needs to know. Primary key. So when we first created the first column ID, there was a little yellow icon key that says this is the primary key. So when you tell the table, the database that in this table there is a primary key, you define it at the end of all the columns. The rule is that whatever it says a primary key must exist as one of the columns here. Okay. So in this case, the primary key is ID, which is coming from this one. So this is the very basic create table syntax. Apply. So once you've done that, you refresh, you will see that your table now has one table now you can use. Okay. So you can do a bit of simple exercises here, like write an insert statement into the product table and see what happens. So let's say I'm going to practice, right? I'm going to insert something in the product table. So insert into products, what thing, and then what values. So when I insert in the products, I can choose the different columns I'm going to key in. Maybe I want to start off with name. Okay, the convention I'm using here, the little the little quote on top. So this particular character here is the one that is on top of your tab button, below the tilde, to the left of the number one. So in MSQL, when you type this, it knows that okay, you're referring to things like a table name, schema name, column name. This is different from if I do this single quote. Notice the color also change to green color. So in the SQL tab, they use color to help tell you what kind of keyword is it. If it's a black blue color like the use and insert, these are reserved keywords, they are like operators. But if you have a brown color text like this one, like the one with the weird standard code, those refer to schema name, table name, column names, or maybe index names and such. If it is green color, it's basically telling you that what you're trying to write there is a text value. Text value either to insert into a table or text value to be used as a comparison in your criteria where you got a where statement. Now if you do like what I did here, use marketplace, will this still run? In MySQL Workbench, they're quite general. They still let you run that statement. It doesn't tell you that it's wrong. Okay? Because actually guessing that it knows that when you type a use, it has to expect the name of the schema next. It doesn't matter if you're using the single quote or the standard quote. It doesn't matter. Okay, my standard quote missing here. Oh, okay. Yeah, this one. Okay. But if you don't use the proper syntax, you will then see all this little cross appear at the left hand side and now the underline, wavy underline, so tell you that something is wrong. So to make your reading less painful, best I recommend to follow their standard. Okay. Okay. So what's happening here? So I'm going to insert into marketplace.products. What's this? Okay. So your first round bracket is to specify the columns you want to insert, followed by values. The second bracket is to specify the actual values. So let's say I'm going to do name, price, images for fun, full description. Okay, so you can do all of them, enter all of them, or not. If it's too long, you can push that line down. It doesn't break anything. In fact, it's make it easier for you to see instead of typing everything one line. So now the values is where I use the single quote. So name, t-shirt, black t-shirt. Okay, size M. Right, price $10. Images, 1.jpg, 2.jpg, 3.jpg, something like that. Okay, full description. Anything you like. Okay, so this is my insert statement. Let me pull. Okay, insert into marketplace products. 4 columns that will insert in name, price, images, full description, values. Make sure that you match the number of values to the number of columns. Okay. And if I want to, I can at the end of the line or anywhere. Okay. Click on the lightning icon. So what the lightning icon do is to execute everything in here. Now if I pull back the output tab from below, you can see what actually happened. So number 3, the thing that happened, use marketplace. Okay, so now the database say must make sure I'm using the marketplace. Okay, number 4 is the actual SQL statement. So in the output, what it gives you is when you run a statement like insert, it tells you if a row was affected or how many was affected. It also gives you the time it took. So now since I have affected one row, how do I know that I have everything? Okay, you can maybe go to the next line and say select star from marketplace products. So this statement select star is to give me everything from the products table. Now I only want to execute this line, right? Then don't tap on the yellow lightning, tap the yellow lightning with the cursor. which will only run the line where my cursor is on. So when you do that, the output tab will give you the query you wrote, time it took, and how many rows returned. And in between these two sandwich will be the tabular display of the data, which is actually what based on what your selection statement is. Because I'm selecting everything, it will give me all the columns, including the ones that I have no data in, and just show me everything. If you look at the ID column, you notice that ID is a column that I have not specified in my insert, however, now there's a value. So this is how the auto increment works in MySQL. Let's change the insert statement to something else. Okay, maybe instead of black t-shirt, put white t-shirt. Okay, and price $9. Still this. Okay, so if I want to only execute this line, insert into marker base. Let's try. So leave my cursor on the insert into. Click on the cursor with the lightning, execute with the cursor. Output will tell you that another row was affected. Now go to the select all, run it again. So now I have the second row that I have inserted in the database appears as a ID2 based on the information I sent in. Okay. So another thing to notice that the due tags and the column that are not specified in my insert. Right now it has no value inside there, so the database will give it a null. Means there's no value. So in order to, maybe sometimes you don't want, maybe based on your design, you don't like nulls to appear there if no value is specified. So in order to change that, there are a few ways. One is that we insert into the product, maybe through the application when you do it, it always has at least a empty string. Okay. Number two, another way to do this is in the database level to specify a default value for those columns that if a null value was encountered. So that to do that is back to the table design. Okay. So you can try, I think you try your insert and select statements. Insert a few test data into the products table and see, how it looks like. You can go ahead and try to insert values for the due tag, short description, hero image, and likes as well. Okay, so after this, I would look at these two other statements: delete and update. Actually, update first, then delete. So do a bit of practice on your own to maybe have about 5 rows of data because we're going to update and delete stuff later. Okay, do you notice what I just did? My values here, I have two rows. You can have multiple values for to insert. So instead of like repeating this statement all the time, you can actually have you can clone this line and then change the values. Okay. Justin, how many rows you have in your table?
Got error.
Error. Oh, what error. What error?
I'm not too sure because just now I start.
Ah.
Just now I just get the story. Then is it text or what?
Oh, comma, not comma, dot.
A dot.
Ah, dot. Adeline, how many rows do you have in your product table? Huh? Haven't added yet. Six. Okay. Yes, a bit more. Mr. Ho, how many rows you have? What happened to SQL? Can start server. Take a look. You saw already lah. Yeah, passwords. There are too many passwords in our life to remember. Yongjin managed to have a table. Catching up, ah. Where you at? No? Which part are you at now? So, just reading. Okay. Okay. Who is ready? Okay, shall I go to update? Pull up, down. So, since I have 7 rows in my product table and I like to update one of them. For example, maybe the Final Fantasy figurine ID 6. I want to change the price to something else. So I do update. So the update statement is what table you update and then set the value where the criteria is. So first thing is, okay, the proper way is this lah, schema followed by the table. Okay, so updating this schema, this table, products, what? Okay, so what am I going to change? So I set the price, maybe I change to 99. Which one? So I say where. In this case, I'm going to change row ID 6, right? So in this case, I will use the where ID equals 6. So update what schema, what table update, what values to change, or what column to change, use it set, and which one to change. So as I use the where. So in this case, it's very easy to use the ID column to identify that one row to set. So I use ID equals 6. Of course, then I can run this line. Okay. So when you run this line, what happens is that other than my screen speaking, one row will be affected, and I go to select all to see what has changed. So now number 6 has changed value. Okay. So this is how the update statement works. What if you want to change? What if you want to change, do update for multiple rows? How do you do it? Okay. So let's say you want to change the price for a few things, not just row 6, ID 6, but a few items. You can do this where ID equals 6 or ID equals to 4 or ID equals to 1. So in a where condition, I can connect multiple conditions using the or and operator. So when I say or, if you put or character means ID 6, 4 and 1 all will be updated to the new price $99. So that's one way to do it, using the or condition. The or condition can also be used if you want to refer to different columns for comparison, not just ID. So let's say I want to change, maybe I want to change the due types. So notice my due types are all empty. I not set any due type. Okay. So I want to set a different column. So set due types equals to maybe meetup. Okay. But which one? Okay. So let's say I want to do this for ID equal to 1 and ID equal to 2. So I could do it this way, okay? Or if I have a lot of IDs to update, there's also a special. So let's say if I have 10, 20 IDs to update, would I can you can choose to continue to type ID or ID or ID 20 times, or do this. Still referring to the ID column, or use this special keyword called in. So instead of having, you're gonna address multiple number of rows based on a single column. Instead of using the or keyword, you can use this in keyword. So in means basically anything that belongs to this values here. So I say where ID in this set 146 is equivalent to saying ID equal 1 or ID equal 4 or ID equal 6. So this way of writing is much shorter, easier to understand. So you can have as many values to put in this set to do comparison, to do and to do update. So this is one way of doing it, which is a lot faster than having multiple or conditions. So you can run this statement. Okay. So notice I got to meet up values. Okay. If I want to, let's say, set the rest of the due types that are now, I want it to have instead of meetup delivery, right? Okay. So in that condition, I will say due types is now. Okay, now is a very special thing in the database. We don't use an equal. Now when you have an equal, you must have a value, even if an empty string. But if you have a now value, the now in the column, you can't use equal now. We use this is. The keyword is. Because the database, when you say equal, you must have a value there. So because of no value, you can only say, is it a noun or not a noun? The reverse of this condition is now is always to put a complement. So if you want to reverse this condition or reverse any condition, you can put a not in front. Okay, shouldn't confuse you that much. So let's say I just want to address all those that are now I will set a due type to delivery. Okay, let's do this. So notice that no more now value, no more now columns in the due type, but and all of them have some values there. Okay. How about the last thing? How would you write the statement to populate all the like values here, set it to 0? So can you try that now? Set all the likes here to 0. Who's the first one to do it? You can raise your hand. Okay, who made you do it? Justin?
Okay, I got other issues.
Oh, what other issue? What other issues are?
When I type right, I type wrongly, then after that it keeps on deleting the character. There's an auto space.
What auto space?
I don't know what I press is I trigger security. Let's say I done wrongly, right? I hit the word. Just
Oh, because you're insert.
when oh, I need to make oh, function.
When you type there's two more. One is you can the other insert is type the other is wrap. So when cursor becomes the underline right, then you write over. Oh. The data source explorer is useful idea. Why you want to so why you want to connect from the fix to the database? Why you want to connect? Oh no, it's not connected one. Oh, when you connect my fix to the database, it's still two different people, two talking each other now. There's only two unless okay, so a lot of IDs provide the ability to connect the database, like the default data explorer, right? What they try to do is that they give you inside they give you some tools for you to explore and compare the data. So it makes it easier to working from one place rather than launching a workbench. But before a workbench because it's more powerful there's a lot of more things. Sometimes the data explorer there are very different ways of interacting. So you don't need to connect the data explorer. Just go straight into the workbench, connect workbench and do this. You will need to connect later from your Java program to here, but that's a different thing. That's the code really, not the Eclipse configuration. Okay, so if you haven't got to setting the lights right, I'll review the answer. So if I want to set one time all the lights from now to 0, simply do this. Okay, so what does this statement do? Update marketplace product set likes equals 0 is indiscriminately all the rows, the likes will be set to 0. So this is I'm not specifying anywhere condition say that oh certain rows 0, other rows other values, right? So this is to set everything. So when remember when you don't specify a condition, you apply the change to all rows in the table. Okay. Okay. The last command that you need to learn, which is the simplest of all, is delete. So like people say when I do projects, they ask me, hey, is it easy to remove things? Normally I say it's easy lah. Taking things away is easier than adding things in or changing things. So delete doesn't care about the columns. You just need to know where what are you deleting from. So we say delete, you say delete from where, which is the schema or the database, the table that you are specifically deleting from, and the condition. So if I want to delete one of these rows, maybe the white t-shirt ID 2, okay, I can specify basically in the where condition specify ID 2 and say this is the row I will delete. You can delete one row or multiple rows depending on how your where condition. You could use an all condition, end condition, and in to determine what are the IDs or what other things the query might want to delete. Okay. So if I do this delete by ID2, okay, make sure you have a specified condition in the delete, otherwise everything will be deleted. Okay, so if I do that and refresh the table, do a select, notice that the ID2 row is now completely missing. So one thing about databases is that there is no such thing as undo. Most of the time, there's no undo. So if you were to change something, there is no turning back to say, can I have the previous version database? In some databases, you can have. So what they have is a rollback. Or in more complicated cases, example in real world situation, a simple operation on the mobile app or any user-based database sometimes involves multiple database command lines. Okay, this is very real. And what happens is a simple thing on the mobile app, the person can say, I want to remove something, but actually in the back end it involves 5 SQL statements doing something. Okay, so typically we call that whole process a transaction. So what you're doing now is single line execution. I'm inserting by one, updating by one, delete by one. So it's whether the one line executes or not. Sorry? Oh, what? Sorry. Oh yeah, I call me like you. Never mind, I gotta record the video. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. You're executing one line by one line. So in SQL, when you're running one line by one line, we call it atomic transaction. Atomic also mean it also is one of the nature of databases is that it's either the line runs or not, it doesn't run. Okay, so if I were to say update something, set something, delete something, it's either the whole line is successful or not. Okay, so in the real world system, a lot of times you're not dealing with one line SQL, you're doing multiple line SQL. So normally we put that together as a thing called transaction. So we force it. Oh yes. Okay, come back to take notice of the insert. When inserting multiple rows, okay, so general rule of all SQL statement is that the entire command must end with a semicolon. End with one semicolon to end to finish the command. In the insert values here, we have multiple rows. Each each bracket, right, each bracket represents one row. I need to separate it by a single comma. So let's say I want to have multiple, let's say I want to between it like add one more row, and that set needs to end. If that set needs to have a comma, then go to the next one. But at the end of the SQL command is a semicolon. So you know that this whole thing is one line. Wait, yeah, you see creating a table? Oh, okay. You can see the column line, the different tag line. Ah, yes, it is. It's a bit small, but notice the two field. Now you can see one is line. So you set right, only the comma. Comma is only with multiple value. Okay, for the update command, if you're updating a single value, single column, right? Just say set column, the column name equal to the value. If you want to update multiple columns, let's say I want to set not just the likes to 0, but the short description to an empty string, you only need to use one set keyword, separate each column that you want to set the values by a comma, like this. So in this case, say I want to modify two columns in the rows that based on my condition. I only need to use one set keyword, and for each column I separate by a comma. So if I want to have more columns to modify, after short description, comma followed by the column name and what value do I want to give it. This is how you set multiple columns using the update command. So similar like insert multiple rows, the comma is a delimiter for multiple values. Okay, so if you have enough rows in there, we'll do some interesting queries. So you all know in marketplace, carousel, you all can find filter, right? Filter products by price. Minimum, maximum, or you only want new type that are meet up on delivery. Okay. So all those functions, how do you do SQL for that kind of stuff based on the data you have? Those are more fun, you don't need to scare about deleting data. So let's say among in my data set, I'm a buyer and I want to find the deals that are within my budget. Less than $100. Okay, so how do I do that? So you imagine it, you have a filter function. Oh, then key in a maximum price, right? And then when you send this data over to your endpoint, which is say such products, and then you give a query parameter of price. Come down the database layer, how does that translate? So a similar statement to that we select from. So I'm selecting from marketplace products, right? So here's the fun part. So my condition is that I want my price to be less than $100. So introducing operators in comparison would be your typical mathematical less than, more than, those kind of operators that you use. Less than, equal also have. Okay. So these are the typical operators for doing number comparisons. Okay. So this particular query will return me only the items that are less than $100. Now, if you also know that in Carousel they allow you to set a minimum price or most selling size that your budget is in between two values. How do you do that? So you use the conjunction and to create another condition to say that maybe I want things to be between $10 to $100. So what happens is that if I add an n, so it will give me items that are less than $100, but also more than $10. And the result is this. So when you want to find a range, so typically when the way you remember this, you want to find a range between two numbers, always use the and condition. Okay, then you specify the limits, the minimum, the lower value, and the higher value. Okay, that's how you normally use and. And if you don't use an and you put or condition, what happens is that you will get actually everything. Okay. Yeah. So if you decide to find a price range, but then if your SQL segment you don't use an and, you use an or segment, you will end up returning everything. So I think this is similar to back in math in school when you have a more than and less than you draw a bar and then the range. Now you can also combine conditions. So in filtering with the most user application of front end, filtering is not just as simple as minimum and maximum price. A lot of apps give shoppers a lot of options to filter by what brand, type, color, as many options as they want based on how much you can data your information. So the more information I have about my product, like color, size, is it brand new or used, the more filter options I can give the user, which also means the more condition I can throw inside here. So let's say I want to filter not just price range, but also by the deal type. So I say I want my item to be between $100 and 10, and it must be a meetup. Okay? How do you do that? When constructing complicated conditions, sometimes it's easier to group things together with the rounded bracket. It's easier for you to see and also useful for the database to understand which things come first. So let's say I want three conditions. Less than 100, more than 10, and due type is equal to meetup. This is my condition. Okay? So I have a few things going on here. So I have this in the bracket and this. Okay, the bracket here is not actually really needed by database, but it's easier for me to see. Okay, two specific set of conditions. I put this price range as one set. Okay, do I have row that meet this criteria? Yes. These two items meet my criteria as a shopper. Okay. Now what if I add one more condition? Among the price and the meetup, I want to look for a keyword. Okay, not adding more things. Okay, so I add one more. I'm looking for figurines. So as long as someone put the word figurines in their product name, I want it to appear. And it must be in my budget and it's a meetup. So how do we deal with text comparisons? Okay, so luckily, so far I show you equal, more than, right? So more than and less than only applies for numbers. You can't use it for text. Equal does for everything. How about finding a text that a single word that exists inside name? So because I might try to do this name, you know, I can't do this right. If I do this name equal to figurines, okay, what happens is that it will be too strict a condition. But also, by the way, notice my name right now, the color of my name is different from the color of the other columns. So notice all the columns that I specify, right? You always be right. But this name you have to be. Okay, what is blue color in here is a reserved keyword. Okay, this is the reason why they prefer you to always the MySQL, the workbench, or the query when doing queries, they prefer you to always specify your column name using that slanted quote, so that you will not be confused that it might be a reserved keyword. Name is a reserved keyword. I'm not sure what it's used for, but if I were to run the statement just now, I'll probably get an error. So in order to tell MySQL that hey, name is not a reserved keyword, it's just one of my column names. Use the quote, the standard quote to as a signature, say this is a column name. So if I do this kind of condition, name equal figurines. Yeah, I'm trying to look for someone who just put figurines as a name of product. But it's in the real world, it never happens like that. People don't just put figurines as a name of product. They like to describe, give it more description. Okay. So in order to make my condition a bit more flexible, we can actually searching for anywhere in the condition where it contains the word figurines, we have this special operator for text. It's called like. So something like this, something like that. So if the text like a car, text this like a car, like a figurine, like a poster, like a cat, like a dog. The like keyword only works for text comparison. But the like keyword is only effective not by doing this, but by putting this thing called wildcards. So if you know the idea of wildcards come in two form in databases. What I'm gonna put here is a percentage wildcard. So you also see wildcards in a lot of other places like asterisk, a star is also a wildcard, a question mark is a wildcard. So there are two types of wildcard in databases. One refers to a single character wildcard, others refer to anything more than a single character like percent sign. So when I put a percent sign in the beginning and after, means I don't care what's in front of the word figurines or behind the word figurines, as long as this word figurines appears anywhere inside the name column. Just like a sentence. If your sentence carries that single word, it will flag it out here. So if I were to do this particular query, I will definitely get one result. It is between my price of 110, it's a meetup, and it contains the word figurines. If I were to change this condition by changing the position of the wildcards, it makes a lot of difference. Example, if I take away the wildcard in front and leave it one single wildcard behind, the percent which stands for any length of text behind it, it will change the condition to say, give me something from products that is between 110, due type as a meetup, and it begins with the word figurines. Now there's also another big difference here. The wildcard also refers to spaces. So you can actually play a lot of combination with this wildcard, especially in text search. If you go deeper into the subject of text searching or text matching, it's actually a lot more than this. The most powerful text search engine in the world is Google. So Google allows you to search phrases, text, and it's able to break down a number of even a phrase you key into parts and then give you results that match parts of your phrase. So it's very powerful. So if you talk about text searching, text matching as entire subject on its own to how it can do text searching and algorithms. What we're doing here is just very simple basic text matching. But most of the time it's good enough. writing for your assignment. If you will do a project on text matching itself, hello, 8:30 already. Never mind, recorded. If you do a project outside and one of the requirement in your application was to provide a powerful text matching search engine, you should be a bit worried because some people have the idea to expect Google out of you to create that kind of search engine. So when you define text searching like this, as people and your client or your project needs something more than just simple matching, I think you should ask the question of how the search is done and what kind of result it's expecting. Because if people are doing like people are expecting a very powerful search engine, it will take more than just a database and a query like this to achieve. Okay? But for your assignment, you will keep it very simple first. Okay, so let me come back to the original figurine search. Yep. So in this particular example of a search, we will have multiple conditions. You probably expect them to be usable from your Android app. Then it sends this as parameters to an endpoint for search products, and then you come to the database, and this is how you probably use it. Okay. Yeah. So far, SQL. Yes. So deepening where it is means deepening it is either means you're not affected or you entered the wrong thing. Try and call the wrong person. Okay. Any questions so far? Except for uh Arif, right? Arif, Aiman. Don't forget Unim. Aiman. Aiman, the session is recorded, so you can still refer tonight. What we covered today. Will you? Last week you not here, right? Last week we did try to set up databases, explain the whole thing about databases. So that one you have to read the lecture notes. Okay. Today is about SQL. So how to create database, how to create table, how to use Excel statement to insert, update, delete data, select data. It's recorded, that's important. Yeah. Because your practical, your assignment don't need all this. shall I go on to the Java or once you get this, you'll get easier in Java side. Okay. Anyone still copying anything from here? No idea. Trying. Okay, question. What's the question? The ending part. Line 14, is it? Oh my. Line number 10, update. Are you doing an update with a condition? Are you doing an update with a condition? Like you want to update certain rows only? Every row. So you update 3 column, like short description, hero image, but every row. Because there's no condition specified. So if you want to only update certain column, you must specify the condition. Okay, so should I go on to the Java side? Since we're gonna do products, so okay. So now I'm gonna go through connecting to MySQL from your Java program. Okay, so not from Eclipse, from Java. So yes, let me slow down. Okay, so to connect your Java program to your database, you first of all you need a connector. Connector basically is a driver. So your application can connect to multiple databases or any databases you like. But for every database, we need a driver. The reason for that is because different databases they have different application programming interfaces. So you can't use a single driver for all databases. Going back to that will be if you go to your installer, the MySQL installer. So this is the one thing you need for installer. Actually, may or may not, but just to show you what it means. So in installer, you might have added a few connectors to you for you, and depending on what application you're using. For example, if you're coding in Python, then this connectors here will be useful based on different Python version. If you're coding in ASP.NET, JavaScript, or any other languages, you need to have a specific connector for that language. So for Java, there will be this connector J. This is the connector to use to connect from your Java program to MySQL. Now, if you click on the connector J, they will give you some information about the, the connector itself. So when you want an application to connect to any database at all, I think the first thing is understanding the the SDK or the application programming interface. Best way to find out about that is to look at the available documentation. So what I'm gonna do show you in here is not so much about oh how the principle of how it's done, but more of what are the libraries you need to use. If you're going to do this with another program like if you code in Python, C Sharp, and whichever, right, they all have different ways of doing it. Okay, but I'm just telling you how do you get around it. So the first thing you get around this is when you encounter a new connector. In this case, in your case, you need to understand the documentation and very importantly look for examples. Best way to learn is by learning by example. So in this case, when say installation, typically is oh you're gonna copy the file, the Java file to some location. So installation important is how do you use a connector. So let's take a look at here. So installation of connector is how do you incorporate into a project. So a lot of times in your project, it's like a program running by itself. If it needs a library, somewhere or rather you need to have the necessary libraries in a folder in the same folder together, or it has some way of tapping on the library somewhere in your file system. So physically it has to be there. So you always look at the installation part of all these drivers. So from here, they give you a few ways of installation. From a binary distribution, so when you say binary distribution, it means it's a download physical file. You put the file physically in your project, and somewhere in your project you need to tell the project, hey, here is the library I need to use. Okay, then put in the path. Another way of doing is 4.2 using Maven. So Maven, coming back to our Eclipse, our Maven library is this pom.xml. These are all coming from Maven. So this is another way of installing the, the, the library you need. First method is copy the file physically into your project somewhere and then reference it. So somewhere there's a step to say this is the file I need. This way by Maven is saying include it in your dependencies. I'm using connector J, version number, artifact number, YD, and then this is your Java, your project will know that it's using that library. It will download it for you. So depends on how you want to do it. Now the other three options 4.3, 4.4, 5 exclude 5. 4.3 installing from source is a very specific way of doing it because your operating system is different. Okay, so when the people who create MySQL and create all these connectors so that you can develop in your favorite language, you can tap on it. They also know that some people don't work on Windows. Some people work on Linux, Ubuntu, Mac, or very different OS. So what they tend to do is they build the same program for different operating systems. And sometimes your operating system is so customized, and mostly in Linux, it tends to be the case that you need to take the source, build it in your system, then you can use it. You don't have to worry about that so much if you're developing typical environments like a Windows or a typical Linux distribution. But I think in cases there are some Linux distributions that are very customized and therefore you need to go to 4.3 which is built from source. Okay. It will be definitely more tedious to do that option. So let's go with what we have now is Maven 4.2. So to do with Maven, simply, so what I'm doing now, I'm basically just following the instruction of say how to do this. Okay, this is the dependency that I need to include. Okay, the first part, don't copy that. They just telling the structure. Okay, why they give a structure? Because the x, y, and z is a number that will change over time. Today you're looking at version this. A few months later, they may upgrade a version to something else. Okay. Hello. Good end already. Okay. So here, what is important is group ID and artifact ID doesn't change. The version will change. That's why they leave it X, Y, Z. Okay. So you say you can use Maven Dependency Manager to install. Do we have Maven Dependency Manager? Yes. Here, this is your Maven Dependency Manager. Is it add? Okay. What's the next thing did they say about this thing? To configure the connector J library. Okay, they say that the connector J library is published in the Maven Central Repository. It means you can find that based on two information, the group ID called MySQL and the artifact ID called MySQL connector-java. Look for these two things, you should be able to find it. That version number probably don't really need to worry so much. So what to do next is to go to the Maven Central Repository. Click on this link. Maybe I should do a new window. So I'll go there. The reason for me to go there is to find a connector, but I want to know what version it's gonna give me. So I think they nicely gave me a link to the direct version. So you can see I'm looking at group ID MySQL, artifact ID, and this is the latest version, 8.0.16. Okay. So in order to add this into my dependency, just follow the instructions. Group ID MySQL, what's the other value? MySQL connector Java. So as long as you're capable of following instructions, you shouldn't go wrong. 8.0.16, right? Okay. So when you tap OK, it will appear here. Now, only when you tap on Save, then your equipment will start downloading the library. So this is option. This is method number 2 of installing the connector. The rest is taken care of at this point in time. You don't need to do anything else. Okay. Now you can close the POM XML and of course wait for your Eclipse to finish downloading the dependency. So you've done checked installing. Now it's how to use. So as I said, best way to learn is by example. Any good site with any site that's reputable and they really like you to use their stuff, they will always provide examples. So look for examples and see how it's been done. So there are a lot of examples, enough for you to get a job going. The way they structure examples is really step by step. What needs to be the base first, followed by next and next. You build it up. So the first example here is this alternate connection from a driver manager. Now, if this is the first time you're reading examples of how to use a connector, I think you will be a little bit confused because how do you know heads and tails of this thing? Like, first thing 7.1, obtaining a connection from driver manager. Is that the first thing that I should do, or I should go to 7.7, retrieving results and output parameter values? Okay. Most of the time, documentation when they given in a successive order, the first item is probably the basic thing you need to do first, followed by the second and third, and it gets progressively more difficult, but only because you've done the previous things. Like for example, 7.1. Before you can do anything else in 2 and up to 14.1, you need to get a connection. So follow in sequence. That's my advice. These are the parts that will actually be tested in your exam, in your test, because you're talking about Java, right? So driver manager, what is this thing called driver manager? Very simple. Look at the example. So 7.1 is the basics of using JDBC in connector J. This thing called a driver manager, and the example shows you a simple code as a code sample of how it is done. So this is how you obtain a connection. So going back to what I said earlier is when you want to connect, when you want to need to talk to your database server, you need to get a connection. The connection runs over TCP/IP, has an IP address, a port number, and of course, always a username and password. This connection allows you to do all the subsequent things you're able to do in Workbench. Select, update, delete, insert. Without a connection, you cannot do anything else. So that's how your Java program talks to database. So you look at the code sample, there are three things they import. First of all, a Java SQL connection class, a driver manager class, and SQL exception class. Okay. So the structure as follows is you need to create a variable of a type called connection, and then from a driver manager there's this method get connection. In the get connection, it allows you to key in or enter a particular parameter. We call this a connection string. Most database servers are connected via a connection string, be it SQL Server, Postgres, whichever. In the connection string, there's a certain schema to it. So like I said, TCP/IP, right? The first part here is its own protocol, JDBC colon MySQL. It looks a bit like HTTP colon // but that's just the way you want to do it. The next parameter is important, localhost. This is the host name of your database server or the IP address. If you're working on the same machine, it'll be localhost. If your database server is on another machine in the same network, then you need the IP address, the 4-digit number, the 4 set of numbers from. So that's important. Second part, test. What's test? Okay, so very unfortunately they didn't explain or break down this thing here. Test actually means the database. So how it works is the first part you need to key in is you need to tell the connection, the driver manager, I want to get connection from this IP address or host name, localhost or something else. Then next thing is which schema am I going to access? / the schema name. In this case, it's going to access a schema or database called test, right? Question mark, which is your query parameters. So your query parameters are very straightforward. User equals is the username, password equals there's a password. That's it. This is the basic connection string. Are there more things in there? Yes, there can be more things in the connection string, but depending on how, first of all, how the database is configured, what you want to get to. Yeah. So you may encounter a situation where you have more query parameters, but this is the basics. If the driver manager is successful in getting connection, because there are many things that go wrong with this. First of all, your database server is sleeping, not started yet, right? Okay, then exception. Number two, maybe you got the host name wrong. It's not localhost, or the IP address wrong. Okay, then you cannot connect. Exception. Maybe the schema doesn't exist. Exception also. Maybe the username and password are wrong. Exception also. Okay, so there's so many things that can go wrong in just getting a connection. This whole thing needs to be encapsulated in the try and catch statement. And all these things can go wrong anytime, even in the real world working example. Any application out there, of all these things that I mentioned, all can go wrong anytime. Because you never know, sometimes your server may go down, you get a connection issue, some DB administrator may have screwed up the system, deleted the whole thing by accident, or changed the username, password, credential somehow. Yeah. So for all the things that go wrong, you need to, Java insists that you must put this in a try and catch statement. And you must handle all possible exceptions. It's not like most of your Java program, you don't need to handle exception. You are given a choice to handle. This one you have to handle. If you don't handle, the compiler will complain. So these are the possible exceptions. SQL exception, and how you get all the information from the exception. The state of the server, error code, there's a lot. I don't know all the error codes as well. Okay. So after talking so much, I think I should download my thing, right? Yeah. So how do I introduce, my Java application to tap on the product table I have here? First thing first, think about the layer first. So before I get to the get driver manager, give me a connection part. I have a product model. I also have a products resource. So these are my product methods, right? Get all products, get one product, add a product. But there's a missing product manager class, okay? Ultimately, which also contain all the database connection as well as SQL statements, right? I need to create that class. Okay, so in my manager package, definitely need to do this. Create a new class, call it products manager. Products manager class will contain business logic as well as the SQL statements, all the database access. So let's create our first method, which is to give me all the products. Simple search query. Okay. So maybe I know that in my get all products, somewhere here I should have a give me find products. Okay. So maybe I do a in this case should be returning a array list. Find products or find all. Okay. Simple one, no parameter, just give me everything. Somewhere in the middle is my DB stuff here. Okay, so somewhere in the middle is the give me connection, run SQL. Okay, and to start, I will need to do this. Of course, need to make sure I got this one covered. Okay, so before I write my next class, Java class, I know for sure there will be a lot of classes that will be getting a connection. So one way I could do this is to go back to the example, copy this thing, and create a method called get connection and paste it inside here, product manager. Later on, when I go to my accounts manager, my office manager, or whichever class that needs database, I'll be constantly duplicating the code here and there. To make it simpler, I'm gonna just create a single class to give me a connection. Okay. So I'm gonna create another class inside my managers, or maybe not. Let me create a new one. So for structure sake, so I'm going to create a new package. The new package will handle things to do with the database. I can call it persistence, you can call it database. Okay, maybe I call it database, easier to understand. Database. This one will be connection. So a connection manager class. Okay, this is where I'm gonna paste the code that I'll copy now. So this class will return me connections to use for all the other classes. So here, literally, I can do the imports. Okay, in the middle, this guy, where does it go to? So I'm going to create a static method, meaning this class doesn't need to be instantiated. So it will return a connection, public static connection get, and then paste inside. Let me modify the code a little bit. Okay. So this is my one method in this class, connection manager. Connection manager get will return me a connection from the driver manager get connection here. The other details that's very important, like the location of database, the schema, username, and password. Okay, the right way to do this is to put this stuff in some kind of a config file that you can read when you call this method. It shouldn't be hard coded in your Java class. Why? When you're doing this for development testing on local machine, you may take the same code, migrate to another environment, and you need to change all these things all over again. So always have this in config files. Let's see. Something which I should have taught the other precious one to do. Let's see, web XML config. Okay, so I think there's a lot of ways to do this. When doing .NET C#, we have an app config. You can put everything there. I'm gonna steal some stuff from here. Okay. Context parameters are good. Okay. Sounds like a good idea. Okay, so this is one way. So let's go back to our. So in a project, there's this thing called WebXML. Okay, happens to be the place where you define your servlet, class, initialization parameters, right? This is also a place where you can add in configuration values, which you can read in your application data. Now, why this is a good place? Because you can change this anytime. Your code is compiled, but this is not compiled. You can change it. Okay, and depending on the environment and server you deploy to, they also may have a C panel, control panel to modify some of the values here. So things like this key information, this username, password, then hard code here. So to get the point across, so let's set up some variables where we're gonna eventually read it from the context and inject it here. Host, DB host name. So what do we have? We have a host name, DB schema, which means the database name. We have the user, DB user, DB password. All these things gonna go right in here. So okay, probably not the best way of writing this. I think there's a better way of doing the string merge. So you all do understand what I'm doing, right? So I'm replacing all this sensitive information with values that will be appended into the connection string. So here's my connection string. The important information I need to inject is hostname, schema, user, password. This we'll get from context. And now we're going to build the context parameters. So context parameters is what it looks like. Looks very, very clunky actually. I prefer other formats. So I think my first question is where do I put them? So by using parameter like this. This one should be inside. Okay, just try my luck. If it doesn't contain means this should be okay. Okay, so let's do this. I got 4 parameters to set up. I'm gonna use the name DB host. So I got DB host. I got schema. Before to go. User. Okay. Eventually, you should create different user for marketplace. Password. Okay, so here's my contacts I prepared in WebXML. How do you extract them? According to the tutorial here, this. So I get context, and then I can get initialization parameter. Okay, servlet context. Servlet context is import Java servlet. Okay, so far looks good. So I need to import another class, Java X servlet context. So here, servlet context ctx equals to, how do you do that? Oh, this dot get. Okay. It needs to GG server. Sure. Let's see if this works. Okay, maybe not. Because this one needs to be a HTTP server here. Oh, okay. Hmm. Just want to get the value. Okay. Simpler. Don't need to do this. Get server context. Okay, except this one. Yeah. Where do you get this one? Hmm. Oh, okay. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, not so straightforward. Let me try this out. Servlet. So I'm gonna do this. Standard class. And need to, so because I extend the server, I need to implement do get. And do get, I need to do what? ODI exception. Getting there, getting there. Okay, so current context is this. Oops. So what I'll do is, so my app server will give me the context values from here. Then I need to return it somewhere. Mm, printing out. I go. No, I don't want. I go. What's that? Hash this. Stationary. Okay. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Actually, no, I don't think it's the right one. Mm. properties file. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Wrong. One bit wrong. Let me clean up. Remove some stuff. No context parameter. Source. This should be sources package. How to clean it? Go. Okay. Maybe just place under resources. Let's see. Resources. Oh, trying to do that. Resources. Okay. So config goes here. Wait a moment. Symbol. Place. User is. So doing this, config name, property values. Okay, so I need to create property value class. Let's do this. Take out this. Okay, so okay, so I'm just copying some files here to look at this. Maybe I don't need to use it. Property values. Actually, I don't need to. Try string. Class file. Result. Okay. So pop this. Okay, so what I'm doing is I created a file called config properties under this folder called resources. So this is storing the hostname, schema, username, password. So it's something I can change. But in order to extract this whole thing out, created another class called add property values. So this class will pull everything out from config properties and I can return it as a single string. So maybe I should return a string array. Actually, I want to return the dictionary. So I like to use this structure that's like a dictionary, key value pair actually. So I get like a key and then I can get from there get a value. Yeah, hash table, that's the one I want to use. It's easier to deal with that. So let me set up hash table. So I'm going to return properties dictionary. So this, okay. So put, yes. So I'm gonna put a value like this, and then property like that. Yeah, something like this. Okay. So this guy, property values. I'll go to my database, collection manager. me just transfer it here. Get. So when I get this. Schema user only cast to string. Okay. String. Because the dictionary allows me to store object as well. So I try catch. Oh, okay, so they need me to surround try catch. Oh, it needs surround try catch because I know why. Because this one has a throw exception. So if I don't throw exception, I can't do that. Okay, I think that is it. Okay. Something missing. Oh, must have a try catch. Must not be empty. Okay, did I catch everything? So new HTML. Okay, so the thing is this. Config properties in resources will store the database connection properties, host, schema, user, password. And I'm using this class add property values to give me the values. Then I'll put into connection manager. So if I manage to get the configuration values, then it will get connection. Otherwise, if it doesn't exist, the connection will be null. Sorry, 9:36 already. Okay, so this is the proper way to get the connection string from a text file, a property file here. Okay, which this can be changed, doesn't get compiled just in the program. And likely, depending on if using Glassfish, Tomcat, server, there also be a way to configure these values because they also call it properties file. Okay, so okay, yeah, next class. So next lesson, we will actually get the DB stuff in the file manager. Then you can do a first query to retrieve data from your table. So by now your table has some data, right? So next one will actually be able to pull some of the data from here and display in the endpoint. That's it. See you next week.